It had been a week since that tense car ride home, but the unease between Ray and me hadn't dissipated. On the surface, things seemed fine. Our conversations touched on everyday topics, and we kept up our usual routines. But beneath it all, I could feel the tension, like the low rumble of distant thunder warning of an approaching storm. Ray had apologized more than once for brushing off my feelings that night, his sincerity evident in the quiet regret that shadowed his words. He tried to show me he cared in his own way, but the wounds left by that moment lingered. For me, being unseen felt like being unmoored, adrift in a sea of unspoken doubt and unshared understanding. Tonight, we decided to spend the evening at my apartment, hoping a quiet, familiar space would help ease the undercurrents of unease. The smell of pasta carbonara wafted from the kitchen, a dish Ray had insisted on cooking himself. The gesture was sweet, and as I watched him plate the food, I allowed myself to hope that this evening might bring us closer again. The candlelight flickered between us at the dining table, casting soft shadows on the walls. Ray's voice carried a lightness as he recounted a humorous story from his day at work. I smiled and laughed at the right moments, appreciating his effort to set a positive tone. But no matter how hard I tried to stay present, my thoughts kept drifting to the unresolved ache in my chest. I glanced at Ray as he gestured animatedly, his grin lighting up the space. This was the man I loved, the man I had chosen to share my life with. Yet, here we were, speaking the same language, but somehow not understanding each other. When the dishes were cleared, we moved to the couch. The soft glow of the candles mingled with the faint hum of the city beyond the windows. Ray stretched his arm along the back of the couch, his casual posture at odds with the tension I felt in my own body. I stared at my hands resting in my lap, hesitating. My mind was a swirl of emotions and thoughts, tangled like threads I couldn't quite unravel, but I knew I couldn't hold them inside any longer.
"Ray," I began, my voice soft and tentative. The weight of what I wanted to say settled heavily in the space between us. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about connection. For me, it's not just about being together physically. It's about truly seeing and understanding each other."
I hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's like an ocean," I continued, my gaze drifting to the flickering flame of the nearest candle. "Sometimes it's calm and inviting, and other times it's deep and overwhelming. But I need someone who's willing to dive into it with me, even when it's not easy." The silence stretched as I waited for his response. When I finally looked at him, his brow was furrowed slightly, his head tilted as if trying to decipher my words.
"An ocean?"
he repeated, his tone uncertain.
"I think I get what you're saying, but isn't that kind of complicated? Relationships don't always have to be so deep, Joelle. Sometimes it's just about enjoying the moment."
His words stung, their simplicity clashing with the depth of what I had tried to share. "It's not about making things complicated," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's about acknowledging that emotions are complicated and being willing to navigate them together." Ray leaned back, his arms crossing defensively.
"I hear you, but sometimes it feels like you're expecting me to understand things that aren't logical. I'm trying, Joelle, but I don't always get where you're coming from. Like tonight, why does everything have to be an ocean or a metaphor? Can't you just say what you mean?"
I felt a wave of frustration rise within me, mixing with the hurt I had been trying to suppress. "Because that's how I feel, Ray. I can't always explain it in straightforward terms. It's not who I am." He sighed, running a hand through his hair.
"But that's the thing. I don't know if I can meet you there, Joelle. I'm not wired that way. I want to understand you, but sometimes it feels like you're speaking a different language."
The vulnerability I had offered now felt like a burden, too heavy for him to carry. I looked away, blinking back tears, the sharp edges of isolation cutting into me. Being misunderstood wasn't just disappointing, it was lonely, as if the very core of who I was had been dismissed. The silence that followed was thick and heavy, punctuated only by the soft crackle of the candles burning low. Finally, I broke it, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not asking you to be like me, Ray. I just need you to try to see me for who I am, even if it doesn't always make sense to you. Ray's gaze softened, guilt flickering in his eyes.
I am trying, Joelle, but what if I'm not enough? What if I can't give you what you need?
His words echoed in my mind, stirring a whirlwind of emotions: love, doubt, sadness, and a faint glimmer of hope. Could we find a way through this? Or were we just prolonging the inevitable? I don't know, I admitted, my voice breaking. But I know I can't keep feeling like this, like I'm too much or not enough at the same time. I need to feel like we're in this together, not just two people trying to bridge an impossible gap. Ray's expression was a mix of frustration and resignation.
I don't want to lose you, Joelle, but I don't know how to fix this.
I let out a shaky breath, the tears I had been holding back finally spilling over. Maybe it's not about fixing it. Maybe it's about deciding if we can grow through it together. As the night deepened, we sat in the quiet of my living room. The candles burned down to stubs. The weight of our conversation pressed down on me, demanding an answer I wasn't sure I could give. But then, as I stared out the window at the city lights reflecting in the glass, I felt something shift within me. This was the turning point, the moment I had to decide whether to fight for what we had or let it go.